Welcome back to my channel, Math Vibes Tutoring. Today we're going to talk about finding the slope of a line using the formula. So I have another video that I posted with finding the slope of a line and you're given a graph. Today we're going to find the slope of the line using the slope formula. Okay, so this slope formula is something that you should be very familiar with, and you'll see it so many different times. You're going to see it in pre-algebra. You'll see it in Algebra 1. You'll see it in Algebra 2. You'll see it in algebra in geometry. So you'll see it so many times that you want to make sure you know this formula straight off. Okay. So what is the slope formula? Okay, because remember, slope is just measuring the steepness of a line. That's what that means. It's just measuring the steepness of a line. And again, I have another video posted if you actually looked at a line on a graph and how we measure that. Okay, so this is just from the formula. So here is the formula. M equals, M is always the letter that we use for slope. So M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, what in the world are this x1, y1, all that stuff? These are actual ordered pairs, okay? These are actual ordered pairs, okay? Now, these x's and y's and y2 and y1, all this means is x1, y1, that's your first point. X2, Y2, that's your second point. That's all that means. So not really anything difficult to understand in terms of that. It is, you're given two coordinates. You go ahead and label one as your first point, label one as your second point. So that's your X1, Y1, X2, Y2. And we're going to plug it into or substitute this in to our equation. Okay, so let's look at these 2 points right here. I have the ordered pairs 5, -3, and 2, 1. So these are, again, ordered pairs that are on a straight line on a graph. Okay, it's a line on a graph. And these are 2 points that are on the line. So let's go ahead and label them. Let's say that this is X1, Y1. And let's say that this is x2, y2. Could I have made 5, -3, x2, y2? Yes. Okay. So you can decide that this is going to be your second point and this is going to be your first point. It doesn't matter. You just make sure that your x's and y's are uniform. Meaning if this is x1, this has to be y1. This can't be x1 and this be y2. Okay, so that's the important part. So if we have the formula that we were given, so M is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Let's just substitute those values in. Okay, so y2, what is y2? 1 right there minus y1. Okay, y1 is -3. Now notice I didn't put 1 minus 3. It is 1 minus -3 because that y1 is already negative. Okay, super important. All right, and then we have 2 minus, because that's your x2, minus 5 because that's your x1. Okay, so let's go ahead and just evaluate these integers. So we have 1 minus -3. You all know that that really is 1 plus 3. Okay, and then 2 minus 5 is -3. Okay, so 1 plus 3, I just did this little part right here so that you can understand the integer rules here. So 1 plus 3 is 4. And then again, we had -3 in our denominator. So this right here represents your slope. Okay, so this is your slope. So I also want you to recognize that this right here means that on any point on the line, I can go up 4 and then from that point go to the left 3 and I'm back to another point on the line. Okay, that's what that means. And some teachers, I'll tell you this, some teachers, have a real problem of seeing that negative in that denominator. So I do want you to understand that this is the exact same thing. If I had that negative sign out to the side, that's the exact same thing. Okay? All right. So let's move on to the next one. So all we did was use the formulas and substitute. All right. So I have a very similar one. I have 5, -3, and 5, 7. 5, -3, and 5, 7. So again, we have that m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Let's go ahead and label. Let's call this x1, let's call this one y1, let's call this x2, and this one y2. Okay? So what we're going to do again is substitute. So where do we start? Where do we start? I'm going to give you a minute. Where do you start? Right. You start right here at 7 because that's your y2. So this is 7 minus whatever y1 is, which is -3. Okay? And then 5 minus whatever x1 is, which is 5. Okay? So 7 minus -3, remember that's really 7 plus 3, that's 10. And 10 over 5 minus 5, which is 0. This is a red flag right here, red flag, okay? This is like emergency right there, okay? So we never, ever, ever, ever have 0 in your denominator, okay? We don't divide by a 0. So if 0 is in your numerator, your denominator, that's a problem. This is not going to simplify to be 0. Okay, so don't just say, oh, 10 divided by 0 is 0. No, that is not true. 0 divided by 10 is 0. But 10 divided by 0 is not 0. The slope here is what we call undefined. There's an undefined slope. Okay, because this right here on a graph represents a vertical line. Okay, so the slope of undefined or undefined slope represents a vertical line on a graph. So again, when you see 0 in your denominator, that's always an undefined slope, no questions asked. Okay, well, what happens if you have 0 after you do your slope formula and you substitute values in? What happens if you have 0 in your numerator? Let's see what that means. Okay, let's see what happens if you have 0 in your numerator. And this is really the same thing. I'm going to change this. Let's take this. I need this. Let's change that. Let's make this 7, 10. Okay, or -7, 10. And I'm going to change this number right here so that we can work with something different. And I'm going to say that this is 2. Okay? Change this one to 10. Let's do that one. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Okay, for what I'm trying to show you. Okay, so here's our new form, our new order pairs. So we have -2, 10, and then we have -7, 10. Okay, so let's see what happens if I do the exact same thing. If your instruction says find the slope given the slope formula. So that formula again is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so here is your x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, so let's substitute. All right, so y2 minus y1, so this is 10 minus 10, and then x2 minus x1, so -7 minus -2. Okay, so 10 minus 10 is 0, -7 minus -2 is really -7 plus 2, and you know that that's going to be -5. Okay, now this is not the same as the previous problem. Remember the previous problem, we had the 0 in our denominator. Here, the 0 is in our numerator. We most certainly can simplify this just to be 0. Okay, so if 0 is in your numerator, we can just simplify that to be 0. Why is that? Because if I graph this line that these 2 points would be on would be a horizontal line. Okay, and the slope of any horizontal line is 0. Okay? So those are just a few problems just to kind of get your feet wet with slope using that formula. Make sure you know the formula. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, or you can always email me at mathvibestutoring@gmail.com. Until next time, subscribe to my channel. Bye.